Welcome, everybody. We're delighted you've tuned in to watch, listen, and maybe even participate in today's Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology News webinar. It's entitled, Conducting Successful Cross-Border Deals. Back in the early 1980s, biotechnology was largely a cottage industry. There were 100 or so bioboutique companies, which were primarily based in the U.S. and several countries in Europe. Collaborations and other types of business agreements took place, but not on any grand scale. Fast forward to today. Anyone who looks at biotech in the 21st century immediately realizes that it now operates on the global stage. In fact, the bioindustry would seek to exist if worldwide sources of capital and investment were not available. An important component of this globalized environment is the ability to engage in cross-border business deals. Many biotech companies want to promote and sell their products and services across the entire global marketplace. They usually need partners in different regions of the world to do so. Today's webinar will show how two Spanish companies and two American firms were able to set up and then complete two successful cross-border deals. Each of our four panelists were deeply involved in the strategic planning, initial discussions, and ultimate consummation of the agreed-upon business arrangements. Let's meet them. Dr. Ignacy Belda is the CEO of Intelligent Pharma, one of Spain's leading CROs. Ignacy will describe his company's capabilities and the thought process that formed the basis for working with SciClone Pharmaceuticals, an American-based, China-centric specialty pharmaceutical firm. Dr. Cynthia Tuthill serves as the Senior Vice President of Scientific Affairs at the aforementioned SciClone Pharmaceuticals. She's also the company's Chief Scientific Officer. After briefly providing some background on SciClone, Cynthia will talk about how the company went about looking for the right contract research organization and why they chose Intelligent Pharma. Dr. Kenneth Weismar is the CEO of Advancell, a biopharmaceutical company located in Spain. Ken will discuss Advancell's list of product offerings and the potential challenges that have to be considered before striking a manufacturing and distribution agreement with ADMEcell. Dr. Matt Porfarzana is the CEO of Alameda, California-based headquartered ADMEcell. Matt will talk about ADMEcell's core competencies and how these influenced the decision to ink the final deal with Advancell. I'm John Sterling, Editor-in-Chief of GEN, and I'm going to serve as moderator. Please feel free to enlarge the slide images or download the complete presentation. At any time during the webinar, you can send in a question for our panelists. Type your question into the Ask a Question box on the lower left of your console and then hit Submit. The panel will try to answer as many as possible during the question and answer segment that takes place after all the presentations have been made. So if everyone's ready, let's get going. Dr. Ignacy Belda will now begin his presentation. Ignacy?
Thank you, John. Well, I'm here to talk about a couple of research projects that we have done with the American company SciClone Pharmaceuticals, which is a virtual pharmaceutical company mainly focused on the Chinese market but located at Silicon Valley. So next slide, please. Well, first of all, let me introduce you Intelligent Pharma. Intelligent Pharma is a CRO focused on providing services in the drug discovery and drug development field. And actually, we are located at Barcelona, Spain. And in these moments, almost all the Spanish pharmaceutical and biotech companies are a client of us. So we are the national leaders in this field, and this is the reason why we are now completely focused on the internationalization of the company. So actually, we have recently opened branches in other parts of Europe, such as Germany and UK, but we are also investing a lot to open the American market. So next slide, please. Well, the services that we offer from Intelligent Pharma are based on using our cutting-edge computational technologies to deliver value in all stages of the drug discovery and drug development process. For instance, the project that we carried out for SciClone were oriented to propose the mechanism of actions that their molecule of interest had, which is a typical task that many clients hire to us along the year. But we can also deliver value in identification of new hits for the pharmaceutical industry, or, for instance, in the hit-to-lead optimization process, or any other type of molecular modeling project. So, in summarizing, we sell customized research projects to address specific needs of our clients. Next slide, please. Well, which are the Intelligent Pharma's capabilities and offerings? Well, Intelligent Pharma offers to the clients a very flexible way of working, and actually we can deal with closed projects, as I explained in the previous slide, but we can also deliver specialized FTEs to work with specific projects. In addition, we recently opened a new business model, which is to sell software as a service. So those clients that have internal computational chemistry skills can also use our cutting-edge discovery technologies from our website. So besides our flexibility as a service company, we offer also cutting-edge computational technologies that we have self-developed, and also huge in-house supercomputational resources that allow us to deliver in a fast manner very quality results. So in addition, our team is composed by a very qualified group of international scientists. We offer also competitive pricing in comparison to other companies, and we have a good reputation among the field because we normally deliver high-quality, successful research projects. Next slide, please. So as I told before, now we are the Spanish leader in our field, and our goal now is to go global. So obviously the American market is one of our priorities, and this is the reason why we are starting to work with some American companies such as SciClone. So our goals now in the American market are to demonstrate our value in the American market and to achieve the first successful cases among our American companies to start working in a very regular basis in that market. Next slide, please. When I was told to explain which were the challenges that we had to face in the American market, I was thinking about, and finally I came out with the idea that no news is good news. I mean, I discovered that working with an American company is not really different for us than working for a Spanish or French or German company. And this is why I say no news, good news, because it was pretty the same working for a local company than an American company. Probably the reasons for that are that all our staff is English speaking, they speak English in a very high level. Everyone in our team has international experience. And very important thing is that all our internal and external documentation is written in English from the first day. So it doesn't care if the company is a Spanish company, our client is a Spanish client or American, we over deliver in English. So it's not really different working with a Spanish company and a foreign company. In addition, well, I have to admit that the communication tools such as Skype, WebEx, etc., they help a lot to us in internationalization process, because for a service company it's very important to be in contact with the clients, and new technologies make things cheaper in terms of communication. So next slide, please. Nevertheless, there are some few things to consider or to have into account if a European company wants to operate in the American market. The first thing is not a really important thing, but just to take into account, and is that the dress code and other formalities are different in Europe than in the US and obviously in other cultures. Just is a thing to take into account, and that's all. The second thing is that a very important thing, the time differences are very important, and it's not trivial to schedule meetings, etc., because you must be always be thinking in the client's time zone, and this is not really easy. An important thing also, especially in the American market, is that time is money, and this is quite different from Europe, where things normally go slower and the people is not so money focused. But in the US, this is very different, and things go much faster, especially because in there, really time is money. And finally, well, time is money, but money is not euros, it's USD, United States dollars. So if you are a European company and you want to stay to operate in United States, one of the first things that you must do is to open a USD counter bank, because your American clients are not going to pay you in euros, but in dollars. So just take that into account. So, well, that's all from my side. Now I'm back to you, John.
Ignacy, thank you for your presentation and for setting the stage for the talks to follow. Very much appreciated. Thank you. If you're just now joining our webinar, welcome. As I previously mentioned, we will be conducting a live Q&A segment following the panelists' presentations. Again, please type your question for any or all of our panelists into the Ask a Question box on the lower left of your console, and then hit Submit. Our second panelist, Dr. Cynthia Tuthill, will now take the webinar stage to provide additional details on the company's deal with Intelligent Pharma. Cynthia?
Thank you, John. I'd like to start by giving a little bit of background about my company, SciClone Pharmaceuticals. We've been in existence for about 20 years, and while our headquarters are in Foster City, California, the rather interesting thing about the company is we have an established business in China. We have over 230 sales reps and an efficient sales organization, so that with our approval of Zadaxen, our first product approval in China, launched in 1996, we have built this into a nice business and have the excitement to say that Zadaxen is the leading brand of thymalphacin in China. Last year, we had sales of close to $85 million, and the nice thing about these yearly sales is that we can use this money to fund our ongoing clinical trials in the U.S. so that we can get approval of our new other drugs in the United States. Next slide, please. So in the United States, we're developing a molecule called SCV07. Similar to Zadaxen, it's also an immune-modulating compound. But the nice thing about this one is it's a proprietary molecule. We have all the rights, and when we get U.S. approval, we won't, have to have any collaborations with any other companies. SCV07 is interesting. It was brought to us by a group of Russian scientists originally because they knew that we have experience in working with immune modulators. The thing about this compound is that as it shifts the T cells into the Th1 subset of helper cells, that suggests it could be useful for many different kinds of indications. Any disease in which the immune system is depressed or in which Th2 cells predominate. So you can see on this slide a list of the different diseases that we've actually investigated in preclinical studies, and we're in phase 2 clinical testing in 2 of these indications, hepatitis C and oral mucositis in head and neck cancer. The next slide explains that we are a virtual company, and we don't have labs of our own, so we aren't really doing any of the investigations in preclinical models or clinical models ourselves. We work with contract research organizations, and so though even I'm a biochemist, I've always wanted my own lab. I don't really have one. But the exciting thing is that, next slide, please, we are able to find and choose many different CROs who can conduct our studies for us. One of the important things is how to find CROs and how to get good ones lined up to do your work. I put some bullet points on this slide explaining the things that I want to remember when I'm thinking about who I should be working with. One thing is to always keep your eyes and ears open for networking. I think that the information from people who've actually worked with a CRO before can give you amazing insight and much more information than you could get from glossy brochures or what have you. Things such as customer response time, flexibility, and reliability are hard to judge unless you know someone who's worked with a CRO before. So it's always very helpful to keep your ears open. Of course, I travel to professional meetings and visit the booths, and also looking at posters of other groups that are doing work that's similar to what I'm interested in to see if they have CROs that they can recommend at those posters. Next slide. It depends on the amount of money and the kind of study you're doing in terms of the level of scrutiny and due diligence that you need to part when you're working with a new CRO. Of course, if we're doing some manufacturing or some kind of GMP or GCP study, we need auditing by professional GXP auditors. And for really expensive or time-consuming or long collaborations, I think a face-to-face meeting is quite necessary. But sometimes we don't have to do this for smaller projects, this day and age of the easy communication electronically. On the next slide, I wanted to mention that as part of using CROs, we also should be keeping in mind that if we were to be doing our own development work, a large amount of time and a lot of money is required for approval of a pharmaceutical product from start to finish. And if you start with 5,000 compounds studied preclinically, only 1 in 5 of them is tested in humans. So any early proof of concept data is invaluable for helping cut down on the time and the cost of developing molecules that may not make it. So in my next slide, I wanted to mention that this idea of keeping your mind open and your eyes and ears open for meeting new CROs and new opportunities, we should also think about some new technologies that could provide that early insight into proof of concept. At one point last year, it was brought to my attention there's a new CRO, and it happened to be a Spanish company, that provides in silico work for drug development. They contacted me. We talked by phone. We emailed. It was nice that I did have a face-to-face meeting with their head of business development who was traveling here. But I felt so comfortable in these interactions with them over the phone and via email that I didn't even feel that I needed to travel to see their building. And we agreed to collaborate on 2 projects, and they were looking at which pathways it could be possible that my molecule was working through, so mechanism of action studies, if you will, just by looking at the structure of the molecule and comparing to their database of thousands and thousands of molecular structures for biological pathways. And then using that information is really exciting. One could think about new possible indications for the molecule. So without having to do any wet lab preclinical studies, we could already think about other ways in which we could test our molecule and move faster into the clinic. And the next slide, I want to say that the collaboration that I had with this company, Intelligent Pharma, was quite successful. Both of the studies were completed on time. Protocols and reports were generated. I had input into some of the wording of the documents or asking for tables to be done differently, that sort of thing. It was easily done via email, and we had a few telecons just to nail down all the final details. There really were no hurdles to the collaboration, and it was quite wonderful. It was almost transparent to me that they were a Spanish company, except for just having to remember the time difference. So that was it for me, John, and I'll hand it back to you.
Cynthia, thank you for presenting such a complimentary presentation to that given by Ignacy. I think you clearly delineated a methodology for choosing a CRO partner, and the fact that the agreement with Intelligent Pharma has worked testifies to this type of strategic planning, so thank you. Before we proceed, let me remind everyone of our live Q&A segment that takes place right after the panelists have made their presentations. Again, please type your questions into the Ask a Question box on the lower left of your console, and then hit Submit. Our third panelist, Dr. Kenneth Weismar, is ready to highlight the key aspects of Advancell's partnership with ADMEcell. Ken?
Okay, thank you, John. So today we will talk about the partnership between Advancell and ADMEcell. So next slide, please. On this slide, I would just briefly introduce the partnership structure of our agreement. And in fact, it is an exclusive manufacturing and distribution agreement between Advancell, my company, which is based in Barcelona, Spain, and ADMEcell in California, United States. The agreement is structured in 2 phases or 2 parts. It has a distribution agreement part, a classic distributor agreement to distribute our products manufactured in Europe in the United States by ADMEcell. This until a certain market penetration is reached or market presence is established. At this point, the agreement foresees that the relationship changed, and it morphs into a licensing agreement, whereas ADMEcell will build up manufacturing capacity, and they will be responsible to manufacture the product, and it is based on a royalty scheme, so it's a pure licensing agreement with a royalty scheme for the manufacturing and distribution of these products. So next slide, please. Here I would like to briefly introduce our company and what we're doing. So Advancell is a biopharmaceutical company, and we are focusing on the development of promising drug candidates in oncology, dermatology, and neurology. We have currently 5 projects in phase 2 developments and a series of preclinical opportunities as well. In addition to this pharmaceutical development work, we have a business that develops and markets ready-to-use cell-based assays for in vitro research. This business used to be part of Advancell. In fact, it is the founding nucleus of Advancell and the technology that has been developed around this. However, for strategic reasons, in 2010 we decided to spin it off and to spin it off into a separate company, which is called ReadyCell. So the ready-to-use cell-based assays are now sold and marketed under the ReadyCell company name. On the next slide, I will show you a couple of product examples of these ready-to-use cell-based assays that are used in vitro research. The first one is called KEICO Ready. It is a cell-based kit based on KEICO2 cells, which are used to do an assessment of the ability of certain, of the drugs that you want to study, the ability of these drugs to cross the intestinal barrier. And it's a fully differentiated 21-day barrier that mimics the intestinal conditions. Another product example is called PrediPort. This is in fact a whole family of different kits based on MDCK2 cells, and they're used to study the active transport of drug compounds through cell membranes. So active transport of the compounds by certain transporter proteins that can be MDR1, BCRP, etc., etc. So this is important for this, and also to study drug-drug interactions and things of the like. Okay. Now on the next slide, I'll summarize a bit of the main customer benefits. And what we want to do is provide a product that enables the customer to focus on what he does best, which is what he actually, in fact, should be doing, which is the discovery and development of new drug compounds. And we don't want him to waste time on making the tools to do it. So we provide him with the tools to do this research in a very effective and efficient way. So these are then, fully pre-plated and differentiated cell cultures on standard 24 and 96 well formats. We developed a technology that enables to ship these cells in a live format at room temperature or ambient temperature. So these cells arrive in perfect conditions at the customer sites, and he can take them and immediately perform his experiments. So this in all saves a lot of cost and time, and then it eliminates, in fact, the use for own cell culturing and plating, which is, of course, very important, and particularly in these customers that do these things in campaigns, where it will be very costly to maintain the cell cultures during the time where they actually not using them for any experiments. So we have developed basically a very easy-to-use product, which is very robust and gives always a repeatable and constant high quality that ensures the reproducibility of experimental results. Okay. Now, on the next slide, let's focus a bit on Advancell capabilities and offerings in this context. There's, of course, a deep know-how in cellular models and in vitro testing, which is all concentrated in these kits and assays that we produce. And we specialized in these ready-to-use kits and developed a specific technology in order to do it, in order to have this sophisticated and robust product that we're offering to the client. And as I mentioned before, it's all possible to make it in a very competitive pricing, particularly if you take a total cost look at what it would take otherwise to do similar results with alternative methods. As we are a Europe-based company, obviously based in Spain, we have a Europe-based sales staff, and also manufacturing is here. We have a strong customer focus, which is of course needed in a company like ours, and a strong technical background to give the necessary support to our customers. And as it also typically for a smaller company, a very strong enthusiasm for our products and the flexibility to solve problems if they occur. So we're a small company, Europe-based, with strong know-how and strong product, and now we were looking to expand our markets. So if we move to the next slides, where we show a bit our goals and needs. So we wanted to expand into the U.S. markets, obviously to access new customers, and we had the need to add additional commercial impact. And we needed somebody that has the know-how or the knowledge how to access these new customers. In addition, we also wanted to have the potential to be building up additional manufacturing capacity in the United States. And the reason to do that is to have this additional manufacturing capacity be closer to the new customers. So therefore, we were looking for a partner that can make this all happen, that has the capability to access and service new clients, to give them technical support, capability to build up and run a manufacturing lab, has the dedication to do all this, and to drive to build up a functioning business which works for all of us, Advancell, but of course also the customer that wants a reliable and working product. And that's how we found ADMEcell. Now on the next slide, I would like to focus on a couple of issues and the solutions to it. First, the issue is, of course, the structuring the deal. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on that because Matt from ADMEcell will talk a bit about this point in his presentation. I would like to focus on a couple of other topics. The first one being cultural differences. Now, cultural differences do not only exist among the companies that can have different cultures. There's also cultural difference on how the markets behave. So we found out that go-to-market strategy that works in Europe did not work exactly in the same way in the United States. So the go-to-market strategy we had to be adapted to the U.S. conditions. So therefore, it was very important to have a partner that has this knowledge and in order to implement that strategy. Other operational issues are exchange rate fluctuations. So we established a certain price in euro to be paid during the distribution agreement phase, and then as the exchange rate went up and down over time, quite strongly, in fact, this sometimes created problems for us, and sometimes it created problems for ADMEcell. So these were things that we had to work out. Customer support being another topic, of course. In the beginning, there is a lot of need for customer support. Or to support, in fact, ADMEcell, that they can do the customer support properly. So a lot of teaching and holding hands in the background so these things work out smoothly. Now, the solution to all these issues and many more that may pop up which are not on the list, one of the most important ingredients is, of course, communication. So open and strong communication between the parties is very important to work out solutions, to build up trust, and to come up with creative solutions to these problems. In addition to that, it's also important to have the ability to learn and adapt, so that things as they go along, not everything can be foreseen. As they come along, issues have to be discussed, and certain solutions need to be found that work for everybody. Good. So with this, I would like to close and thank you, and I will give back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Ken, for continuing the discussion on what needs to be done to carry out a successful cross-border biotech deal. I believe a number of the points you raised will provide some intellectual fodder for our Q&A session, so thank you very much. Speaking of which, let me remind the audience of our upcoming Q&A segment, which will take place right after the next speaker completes his presentation. Please type your question into the Ask a Question box on the lower left of your console, and then hit Submit. Our final speaker is Dr. Matt Farzana. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, John. I would like to present to you our company and the type of U.S.-Spanish partnership we are most interested in, and to provide you an example of such partnership. Next slide. We are a life science company focused on manufacturing and marketing of ready-to-use assays to assist in the acceleration of drug discovery and development. Next slide. Let me give you a little bit background about our company. We are a privately held company located in Alameda, California, and I would like to emphasize that ADMEcell management's prior experience is in the diagnostic and biotech area, where ready-to-use assays and kits are the norm. Next slide. Our current portfolio consists of ready-to-use cell-based assays, which is from Advancell in Spain, ready-to-use Transil assays, which is from SciClone in Germany, and ready-to-use antibody-based assays, which is from RD Biotech in France. Next slide. In ADMEcell, we do not believe that there is any reward in reinventing the wheel. Therefore, we are looking for partners that have complementary skills and product to ADMEcell's. Now, let's look at ADMEcell's core competencies. Next slide. We have over 60 years of combined experience in developing innovative and commercialization of ready-to-use products. We have over 40 years of experience in international business development. We have access to market and ability to work very closely with customers. This is very important when one introduces new and innovative products. The benefit of the products, the value of the product needs to be clearly communicated to the customer. We are very proficient in customer and technical service, and we have in-depth knowledge of manufacturing and ability to work closely with suppliers to ensure quality and integrity of the products offered. Next slide. Now let's look at Advancell capabilities complementary with ADMEcell's. Advancell have innovative and ready-to-use product for drug screening. That is what we want to do. That's exactly the goals that we have. They have cost-effective products. They have proven record of manufacturing and supply of such products. They are customer-oriented and flexible. They are open to distribution and manufacturing partnership. Also, it's easy to communicate with them, and most importantly, they have the same shared business value with ADMEcell. Next slide. The current partnership structure that we have is product distribution agreement based on mutual and equitable sharing of revenue. And we also have an agreement which is based on royalty for manufacturing the products in the USA. Now, some of the potential challenges in any part to establish such partnership and also the process going through are as follows. First of all, I think it's very important to have common business value and goals. As I mentioned earlier, they are customer-oriented, for example, the same as we are, and also they want to bring their product to United States, and we want to offer this product to United States, and many others business structure that they have, the values are the same. It is important to identify the market differences. There are several market differences, let's say, between Europe and United States or United States and China. One is to identify those and communicate very clearly, and then change those aspects of the product or product offering. It might be as small as a labeling change, or it could be configuration and packaging that needs to be addressed for the market that you are introducing these innovative products. Also important is to go through their manufacturing process to understand what it is, to understand the strengths and potential weaknesses, and also make sure that there is adequate contingencies for growth to accommodate the growth of the business. One doesn't want to have a purchase order but not to be able to deliver the products. And once all is done, then of course you agree to the term of contract, and then you sign. Equally important are the followings. We need to identify and designate personnel for a specific function, let's say for technical service or customer service or accounting, what have you. It's important to identify your personnel responsible for those functions. Also, identify the milestone and establish timeline. You want to incorporate the product in your catalog or to your website, or you need product collateral in order to incorporate to your marketing. So you need to identify that and establish timelines in order to make sure everything happens in a smooth manner and on a timely manner. Again, another important fact is you need to establish a regular update of what's happening whether it's with manufacturing or whether it's with product offering or whether it is with market penetration. So these factors need to be accounted for. Next slide. We also have planned for future partnership, to expand our partnership in the future. That include expand the partnership to include development of new products that we may identify here in the United States, and also license for new product development in USA as our partnership proceed forward. And I think that's all I have. Thank you for your time, and I hope this presentation was of value to you. Now back to you, John.
Matt, thank you very much, and thanks also to the other panelists for their timely presentations. You've all made a strong case regarding the need for cross-border deals, and you've offered a detailed roadmap for accomplishing these business agreements as efficiently and effectively as possible, so thank you very much. Well, some very interesting questions have come in from the audience during the webinar, so let's jump right in to our Q&A session. And I'm going to find the first question, and it's going to be for Ignacy. Ignacy, how did you approach business development, sales, and marketing for the U.S. market? A local agent, a U.S. business development manager, a consulting company? They want to know how you went about doing that.
Well, actually, in other countries out of U.S., we tested with different strategies, and finally we came out that the best thing is to approach the market directly by our own. And this is the reason why we are traveling to U.S. quite frequently, and we are visiting clients, we are visiting conferences, we are assisting to events, etc. And, well, for us, it's the best way to approach a new market.
And, Ignacio, we have another question. Are your products in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, and procedures?
Well, this is a tricky question because actually in drug discovery there are few regulations and few laws to be followed. In fact, I would say yes, because in computational chemistry there are no regulations, so we are following all of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Cynthia, a couple of questions have come in for you. If one is considering using a Spanish CRO for GLP or GMP work, what kind of due diligence do you suggest conducting prior to outsourcing a study?
Oh, sure. That's an interesting question because I've been working at SciClone for almost 20 years now, and this used to be a very serious issue when working with companies from other countries. But now, with the ICH guidelines in place, really, I think essentially all CROs, especially in Europe, comply with similar standards and rules. It really makes it much easier for us to qualify GXP vendors. So we conduct a simple GXP audit, and we have an audit reschedule, set up every year or so for each of our CROs. And we also ask for copies of any 483s whenever they have an audit themselves from the authorities.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you. And another question, what type of questions would you ask references when calling about a CRO?
Well, I'm always very careful to ask about their responsiveness. I think, especially in a cross-border relationship, responsiveness is important because if you don't feel that you can hear back from your CRO quickly, the relationship can deteriorate and anxieties can creep in. So I think responsiveness is very important. Of course, we care about the quality of their work, and it would be nice to see examples of reports that they've done. Adherence to timelines and budget, those are really important especially for a company in the U.S. these days. We have such oversight with our auditors. We have to be precise about timelines and budget. But also flexibility if things change. We would like our CROs to be flexible to our changes, of course. And again, as I mentioned, we want really professional reports and feel like there's a good attitude towards our needs and requirements.
Thank you very much. Cynthia, we have a question now for Ken. Was it difficult to set up the logistics in the U.S. for your products, given that these are living cells?
Yes, thank you, John, for the question. Well, in fact, it wasn't an issue in our case, since even though these are living cells, with the technology that we have developed, the so-called shipping medium that protects these cells while they are shipped at room temperature, works quite nicely. So we and it does protect the cells over several days. So even though we ship them sometimes to quite far away places, there has never been an issue with the logistics.
Thank you very much. And Matt, we have a question for you. What are some of the key factors you identified in your manufacturing agreement?
Hello, John. Some of the key factors are, for example, how, in general, what are the logistics? What are the steps? What are the key factors that you need to look into? Like, for example, you're handling live cells, so you identify, okay, how Advancell are handling those live cells, how many locations they keep it, and what happens if different scenarios of failure happens. What do you do? So once you identify those, then you go through for example, SOPs very carefully to make sure that every step in SOPs is followed, and if it's not clear, you clarify it. And then timeline, how many lots do you have to prepare? What do you do for validation that, yes, you can manufacture it successfully? So those are some of the things that you will do.
Well, Matt, thank you very much. And just looking at the time, we've just unfortunately run out of time. But please note that this webinar will be archived for 6 months on our website, www.genengnews.com. If you missed parts of it, you can watch it again, or you can recommend it to your colleagues and friends. Thanks again to the panel for your outstanding presentations, and also want to say thank you to our audience for your attention and for your thoughtful questions about various topics brought up during the webinar. And thank you to our sponsor, the Trade Commission of Spain in Chicago, who made this event possible. Now, for those of you who will be attending the Bio International Conference later this month in Washington, D.C., more than 100 Spanish companies will be showcasing their biotech capabilities and innovations at the Bio meeting. It takes place from June 27th through the 30th. To learn more about biotechnology in Spain, please be sure to visit booth 3437. The Trade Commission of Spain in Chicago will be happy to arrange meetings with any exhibitors of your interest. Please email mmarshall@mcx.es. I'll spell it out for you. That's M, two M's as in Mary, ARSHALL at M as in Mary, CX.es with your request. Shortly, we'll be sending you a survey, and we would appreciate your feedback on this webinar. Please look out for it, and kindly give us your thoughts, as this will help us to continue to bring you topical and timely webinars in the future. Thank you all so much.